Okay, y'all. Now we get to the Ask Me Anything section of the week ahead. And this week, I want to answer one very foundational question, which is, what is a birth chart and how do I read mine? So this is my explanation that you may have heard somewhere before that I've talked about. Okay, this is what your birth chart is. It is a snapshot of the sky the moment that you are born. So it is the sky that you can see, and it is the sky that you cannot see. So by that, I mean, it is the full 360 degrees of the zodiacal belt. It is every single sign in the zodiacal belt is in your chart, meaning every single sign in the zodiac, all 12 signs are in your chart because your chart is the whole sky. Everything that is in the sky is in your chart. And that means that you will have some signs that are totally empty, some houses that are totally empty, and some that are really full. Some people have like a little sprinkling of everything everywhere, not in every single sign because there's not 12 like modern astrological bodies, but you could have, if you added in the nodes and Chiron and the modern planets, you could have something in every single sign in your chart. But a lot of us will have like an amalgamation, because it's just about how the planets move. So a bunch of planets will be in one sign, and then a little cluster of other planets will be in other signs. And we look at and see the relationship of every single thing in the sky the moment that you were born. But it's like the totality of the sky. So you know how you can't see, if it's a full moon and it's the middle of the day, you can only see the sun. But on the other side of the world, they would see the full moon. And then 12 hours pass and we only see the full moon and we can't see the sun anymore, but the other side of the world sees the sun. But in your chart, it's the snapshot of the whole sky. And you can tell like what was visible in the sky, what was invisible in the sky, but all of it means something. So it's a snapshot of the sky in its totality, the moment that you were born. And every single thing in it means something. So we've got the planets, we've got the signs, and then through that understanding of where the ascendant is, what sign was rising up over the eastern horizon. Because you have to remember the zodiacal belt, the sky as we see it and as we see the planets move, is just along this 360 degree literal circle orb around the earth. And so we can only ever see half of it. If we'd had no mountains or anything, we'd only see from one rising sign to the setting sign. It would only ever really be half. And then the rest of the zodiacal belt would be what we considered like under the earth, or we couldn't see it, right? It would be visible on the other side of the planet. So that whole thing, everything that's happening there is your chart. And when we see the rising sign, then we know that that's the first house. And then we can set up all the other 12 houses from that place in your chart, from just knowing your rising sign. So there's all of the houses, which are just domains of life. The houses in whole sign houses, which is what I use, line up with the signs. So I consider every sign to be a house. There's 12 signs, there's 12 houses. So your rising sign is your first house, which is the U of the chart. And then the sign underneath that is the second house, which is your money, your assets, and your finances and your livelihood. Then there's the third house, which is your communications, your daily life, rituals, also relationships with siblings and extended family. Then there's the fourth house, which would look like midnight. That's where the sun would be at midnight. It's the point deep under the earth, so to speak. And that's your home and family and lineage and your literal house and your roots or your apartment where you live, but also your ancestry. Then there's the fifth house, which is children and creative projects and also having fun and pastimes and hobbies and all that good stuff. Then there's your sixth house, which is your work and your service and also health issues and like the daily toil and labor of life. Then there's the seventh house, which is the house of relationships. The eighth house, which is the house of, we could say, endings, grief, loss, dealing with the endings of things. We live in a physical body, in a physical world. Everything ends. We have grief around it. It's just part of the human condition. But it's also a place where we deal with taxes and debts and loans and also grants. So I always note that when people have a lot of stuff in the 8th house, sometimes they're mediums because it also has to do with death and having people in your life or animals or pets or what have you pass over. It's about endings, again, and grief. Some people are grief doulas. Some people become abortion doulas. There's like something there that really knows something about being trauma informed or passages and passing from and transitioning from the physical to the non-physical realm of being. And sometimes people with significant amounts of planets in the 8th house also have had kind of harrowing experiences that may or may not be like, close to the edge of existence. So the 8th house is complicated, but we all have one and it's all part of the human existence. The 9th house is about higher learning, adventure, travel, school, publishing, going out into the world, having your work go out into the world, having your offerings, your philosophies. It's also about spiritual quests, and it's also about dreams and dreaming, like your little dreams at night, and psychic dreaming and healing dreams, and any kind of like spiritual practice that you do that's also healing. It's about going on a quest for knowledge. It's also about law. So people with a lot of stuff there can also be into law and know a lot about it. Philosophical law, religious law, law of the land law, all of that kind of stuff goes in the 9th house. 10th house is like high noon. So 4th house is opposite to the 10th house. And that is the internal, mysterious, like inner life. And the 10th house is opposite to that. So it's all public. It's your reputation. It's how people see you. It's how people know you. It's how people perceive you. It's also, if you have a job, if you have a career, it's that part of your life. It's like putting your work out into the world and what you're known for and what you're striving for. The 11th house is all about friends and groups and associations and your hopes and dreams for the future. And then the 12th house, the last house, is about your hidden self, your hidden life. So it's very mysterious. It's very much about meeting your own inner genius, but also your inner self-saboteur. It's a very deep and complex kind of place. It's also about where we put people that we don't want to deal with. So it's about incarceration. It's about institutions. It's about being institutionalized. And so metaphorically, in our own life, our 12th house will teach us about what it is we relegate to the shadows or what it is we marginalize in ourselves. So societally, it's who we marginalize and who we want to put away. And then personally, it's how we might do that to the self. It's how we might not be in contact with a part of self. So those are the houses. And then the planets are somewhere in those houses, right? They're in a sign, in a house somewhere, and it all means something. Having Venus in the 1st house is very different than having Venus in the 12th house, is very different than having Venus in the 3rd house. And whatever sign you have on your ascendant, whatever your rising sign is, the planet that rules that sign, what house it's in is key. And wherever your sun and moon are, key houses, key areas of life that you want to know about. There is a little video on YouTube about the houses and their meanings as well. But what signs are in the house in question, what planet is in the sign in the house that is in question, very important. And there's all of these different combinations. There's 10 planetary bodies we look at. There's 12 signs, there's 12 houses. Imagine all of the different combinations you can have. And then there's the fact that planets will have relationships with each other. So those are called aspects. And so if you have Sun sitting with Venus, that's going to be very different than if you have Sun sitting with the planet Uranus, because Uranus is about upheaval and being a weirdo, and Venus is about being really likable and being really cute and being really approachable and all the Venusian things. It's about being an artist, really. And the Uranus is about being a scientist or experimenter or someone who's going to really go rogue and shake everything up and break everything, possibly. So every planet to planet combination is very specific as well. So planet-to-planet combinations are also different given what house they're in and what sign they're in. So a Sun-Uranus person in the 12th house is going to be very different than if you have Sun-Uranus in the 10th house, where it's really obvious and really loud. The Sun-Uranus in the 12th house will be hidden. It might be loud internally, but it might not be as loud externally. And so there's all these combinations mean different things. The bottom line is that we take a snapshot of the sky the moment that you're born, and every single thing that is happening the moment that you're born is exceptionally important. There's different rankings of how important and how I prioritize information in your chart. I'll always look at sun, moon, rising sign, ruler of the rising sign. First and foremost, I look at if you're born at night or if you're born in the day. If you're born at night, I look to your moon first. If you're born in the day, I look to your sun first. And then I go to the other luminary. And then I want to know your rising sign. I actually start with the rising sign first. I like the rising sign first because it's the most personal to you. And then I look at where that planet is that rules your rising sign. And then I incorporate the sun or moon, depending on if you're born at night or day. And then I incorporate the other luminary. And by the time I'm done talking about all that and all the planets that they touch, I've usually gathered the whole chart. But if there's other planets that are in really special condition, meaning if they're in the sign that they do really well in, or if they're in a sign that they struggle really intensely in, that also pops out. So there's these different levels of like ranking of how important the information in your chart is. And you can learn it all. It's like coding. You like, okay, this code means this code means that. I need to pay attention to this before I pay attention to that. But a good place to start is a rising sign, ruler of the rising sign. Where is that planet, sun, and moon? And you can get tons of information just from those little nuggets.